What's up, everybody? It's Hammer. It's a super cold day here in New York, and I'm kind of stuck inside with not a whole lot to do, so I thought it would be the perfect day to wash my down sleeping quilt. Washing down gear can sort of be a pain in the ass. It usually takes a few hours from start to finish, and it can be a little intimidating for someone who's never done it before. No one wants to ruin an expensive piece of down gear, so I kind of wanted to go over the whole process with you guys. So I have my 20-degree enlightened equipment Enigma quilt. This is the one that I carried on my AT through hike, as well as many shorter trips on top of that. And I've never washed it. It's got a lot of miles on it, starting to smell a little bit. And on top of that, down starts to compress over time. And when that happens, the quilt isn't quite as warm as it once was. So washing it should help re-loft the quilt and get it a little more ready for this hiking season. The Enlightened Equipment quilts come in these neat little canvas bags, and Enlightened Equipment actually prints the washing instructions on the back, so I'm going to be following these instructions. And I will be using Nick Wax Down Wash Direct. I got this off Amazon, I think probably like 10 bucks. It seems to work pretty well, and a lot of people like it, so that's what we're going to be using. Let's head upstairs to the bathroom and get right into it.
The first thing you'll want to do is fill your bathtub up with 3 to 4 inches of water, just enough to cover your quilt. Use warm but not hot water. Follow the instructions on the back of your down wash and use the appropriate amount. The Nick Wax calls for about 1/3 of the bottle. Mix around the wash until you have a nice soapy water. Next, you'll want to submerge your quilt into the water. To make this process a little easier, you can put the quilt in a stuff sack, submerge the stuff sack, and then slowly release the quilt. They are very buoyant, and this process is a lot trickier than it looks. Carefully knead all of the air out of the quilt until it is fully saturated. Keep going until the quilt is fully submerged, and then spread the quilt out into the bathtub and let it set for about 10 to 15 minutes. After about 15 minutes, you can drain the bathtub and begin pushing all of the water out of the quilt. Continue using the same kneading motion to push as much water out of the quilt as you can. Be sure you do not wring out the quilt. Refill the bathtub and begin the process all over again. Get the quilt fully saturated, drain the tub, and push out all the water again. Repeat this whole process 3 to 5 times, or until you can no longer see suds from the downwash coming out of your quilt. When you are confident that all of the soap is out of your quilt, spread the quilt out into the bathtub. You are going to feel large clumps of down feathers inside the quilt. Use your fingers to carefully pull these clumps apart as best you can. This process will get the quilt ready for its first round in the dryer. Throw your quilt into the dryer with 2 to 3 tennis balls. I opted to use dryer balls. They'll work just as well. If you do use tennis balls, I recommend using clean new ones. Set the dryer to a 1-hour time dry. Use air only if you have the setting. If not, use the lowest amount of heat possible. After 1 hour in the dryer, remove the quilt. Lay it out flat and go through the quilt, again breaking apart the clumps of down feathers. You want to make sure not to actually rip any of the feathers, just to pull them apart from one another. This will help with the drying process. After pulling apart the clumps of down as best you can, throw the quilt back into the dryer for another hour. You'll want to repeat this process until your quilt is completely dry. It usually takes 4 to 6 hours total in the dryer. When the quilt is completely dry, it should be nice and fluffy once again. Lay out the quilt and go through making sure that there are no more clumps of down in the quilt. Pull them apart as needed.
So there you have it. That is how you clean a down sleeping quilt. I appreciate you all watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know it's quite the process, but now my quilt is nice and fluffy again. It's going to keep me much warmer, and it actually smells good, which is awesome. So again, I appreciate it, and I will see you next time.